here with another falconry video. Today's video, I am going to be talking about Swainson's hawks. Reason being, this time of year, it's fall. It's actually September. This is the time of year the Swainson's hawks are leaving my area. I've got the Halloween decorations up already because I love Halloween. For me, it's a 2-month holiday. But you know what? September is when the Swainson's hawks starting to kind of amass, and I see them in mass leaving. And I'll get to the migration here in a minute. But Swainson's hawks themselves, you don't normally see them used in falconry. And among my friends and people who know me over the years, I have gotten a reputation for jabbing at Swainson's hawks, for ripping on them, making fun of them, putting them down a bit. But it's a joke. It's me jabbing at them. So what's the truth about them? Are they a legitimate falconry bird or not? What are their pros? What are their cons? What are they like in the wild? So I want to talk about that. First of all, Swainson's hawks are oddly, highly tolerant of humans. It's one of the raptors you can get closest to. If you compare them to like a red-tailed hawk or a rough-legged hawk or a fruginous hawk, these are birds that are more likely to bolt. If you're driving along and you pull up, they're sitting on a telephone pole, they're gonna red-tailed hawk, it's gonna bolt and take off and fly away. Swainson's hawks, a lot of times you can drive right up next to them. And they just sit there. They're just very tolerant. There's partly a reason why that I'll get to in a bit, but still genetically, there's a social reason why they do that, but genetically they also seem very tolerant of humans. They will nest right in your yard. They will nest at very low nests. I've found nests before that were just like literally on a big sagebrush or a very, very, very short juniper that you could just like ride up to. It's pretty amazing that they will nest so close to the road, so close to people, and they just tolerate humans in ways that other buzzards, other buteos, other soaring hawks just typically do not. And that's one of the reasons why a person might say, well, geez, these birds are all around. They're very common. They're very accessible. They have a natural inclination towards being tolerant of humans. Shouldn't this make a good falconry bird? And we'll talk about that in a minute too. But I want to talk about the migration of these birds. These birds in Utah, they get here kind of late in the spring. They're the latest nesters, but they're one of the first to leave. So September in Utah is when we have all the Swainson's hawks leaving and all the turkey vultures leaving. They all kind of go out en masse together, leaving the warmth. But the interesting thing that happens is these migration routes often coincide directly with the time of year that farmers are plowing up their fields. Like they've had the harvest of whatever crop they're doing, and now they're going to plow up and just churn up the soil to pieces to, let it aerate and get more nitrogen for the next year. Now, all season long, all the rodents that have been living in these farm fields, they can hide. They can go under the grasses. They can go under the crops. They can just hide down easily. Well, now suddenly the crops have been mowed down, and you have these big plows coming and just churning it all up. The Swainson's hawks are smart. They've keyed in on this, and they show up in mass, and they just follow along. So if you're driving around this time of year, if you look on the irrigation watering apparatuses that they have that will spray out all to water all the crops, you'll just have tons and tons of Swainson's hawks just sitting along in a row, just looking for stuff to hunt. You'll see them out in the fields as well, and they will follow directly after these giant plows, this giant farming equipment, because any rodents that are still under the ground, that is going to churn them up, and it even kills some of them. Some of these rodents just kind of get half blended, chopped in half, and so it's just a free feast for them. And you'll see them in mass all over. Now, Swainson's hawks themselves come in a wide range of colors. They can be extremely light. They can be extremely dark. They have just a really, really wide range of colorations. This time of year, a lot of apprentices who are eager to go hunt and go trap a red-tailed hawk will mistake a Swainson's hawk for a first year or a passage red-tailed hawk, because red-tails usually have kind of a brown tail with black stripes until they turn 1, and then they get the red tail. So you have to be very cautious this time of year trapping, because it is possible to accidentally, if you're not thinking straight, trap a Swainson's hawk and think it's a red-tailed hawk. It happens every year, so you'll have an apprentice that does it. It's like, no, that's not what you're supposed to be going after. At least it didn't used to be. So with these Swainson's hawks, when they're migrating in mass, one of the other things also happens that's very interesting. They love to hunt insects. It's very odd to have a bird this large that will hunt insects. They'll go after like grasshoppers or locusts, right? And just about anything out in the fields. But that's another thing that is in these fields churned up. You know, something that's on the ground feeding, eating what's left of the crops, and they will come in mass also, and they'll follow along and eat all of these little insects that are left behind as well. Which is kind of odd. You don't see that behavior typically with other buteos. You don't see it with red-tailed hawks. You don't see it with ferruginous hawks. You don't see it with rough-legged hawks. You don't see it. But it is a Swainson's hawk thing. And that kind of gives them a reputation as being cricket hawks. You know, oh, they're just going after little stuff. They're not good hunters. You know, so there's no reason to fly one. Now, when they do migrate, they go far. They go from, North America, and they go all the way down to Argentina. They've also been kind of seen a little bit in Chile, but basically they all go down to Argentina and hang out. Now, I mentioned earlier that one of the reasons why they're so amicable towards humans might be because of a human habit. And that is down in Argentina, and even along the way, along the migration routes throughout Latin America, sometimes people, just for the fun of it, will throw scraps of meat out to them. It's kind of like if you go to Australia, where the kookaburra's there. The kookaburras, people will give them little slices of chicken. They'll just fly up to the window, and here you go. And it's kind of fun to just, hey, we're cooking up some food, or hey, we got some raw chicken there, we're going to chuck a piece out to the hawk and have them come eat it. Hey, just like feeding the pigeons of the park, but you're feeding the hawks. That is probably part of the reason why Swainson's hawks are more amicable towards human disruption. But they seem to do it anyways. Even the ones way out in the wilderness areas, they just seem more willing to put up with human tolerance, with just humans, being present. And it's really odd to see how close you can get to them. Even the nests, you can get right up to the nest and have them just kind of sit around like it doesn't really matter. That's a very long migration. If you look at a map and you're saying, okay, we're going to migrate from, somewhere in the western United States all the way down to Argentina, that is an incredible migration and a very odd one. Most birds do not migrate that far, if they do at all. And so what they're doing is there's obviously resources there that they are hunting that time of year because, it's like they're basically chasing the summer. If it's summer here, then it's winter in the southern hemisphere. But then when you're moving into winter up here, you go to the southern hemisphere and you get the summer there in the winter up here. So it's a good strategy. They are good at gliding. They're good at migrating. They do have wings built for it. They have good soaring wings. Their wings are a bit more pointed, a bit more falcon-like for a buteo, but they still are very good at soaring and gliding. Now, when they have these big, long travels, of course, they're following routes that are kind of genetically programmed in after generations and generations. But of course, sometimes birds wander, or sometimes they get blown off course by huge storms. And that has led to, and I have to mention, I mention it every time I mention Swainson's hawks. To me, you cannot mention Swainson's hawks without mentioning Galapagos hawks. Galapagos hawks live on the Galapagos Island. They're only hawk native there, but they're not originally native there. They are Swainson's hawks that got blown off course to the Galapagos Islands, and then it's like, well, what is there to eat here? Iguanas? And so both marine iguanas and land iguanas is what they typically hunt. Of course, they're going after the younger ones, as young as they can get, but still, that has predicated the adaptation developing of larger feet. Swainson's hawks, on their own, have dinky feet, very dinky feet. They still have tremendous grip, but they have very dinky feet. Galapagos hawks, the selective pressures of the Galapagos Islands has led to them having enormous feet, huge, powerful feet for a hawk their size. According to the genetic studies that have been done, the Swainson's hawks derived off of Galapagos hawks derived off of Swainson's hawks only about 300,000 years ago, which is nothing. It's not even 1 million years. It's a drop in the hat. So they're very close. They could interbreed, and if you put them together, they probably would. They're that closely related, but still, we see the selective pressures of that island living have formed Swainson's hawks into these massively powerful Galapagos hawks. But just like just like the Swainson's hawks, Galapagos hawks are incredibly tolerant of humans. You can walk right up to them, even at their nests. Now, that being said, that could also just be because they're isolated on an island. Usually, island wildlife that is isolated is very naive in their response to humans, but still, they came from Swainson's hawks, and Swainson's hawks are very tolerant of humans. Now, Swainson's hawks, as far as their ability to hunt, can be used in falconry. Again, we always rip on them because they're cricket hawks. They're going after little mice and crickets. So are kestrels. I am a huge advocate of American kestrels. And if you look at Matt Mullenix's work on kestrels, he's written about them. He's got amazing YouTube channels promoting American kestrels. We know, and I've hunted with American kestrels extensively. American kestrels are hunting the same thing in the wild. They're hunting little mice and rats and grasshoppers and crickets and things like that. And they're way smaller than a Swainson's hawk. So where do we come up with this, like, this Swainson's hawk is not suited for hunting, but this little kestrel is? Well, they hunt the same prey, and a Swainson's hawk is bigger. So what's the deal? I'm addressing this largely to myself because I'm always ragging on Swainson's hawks. Well, in truth, now I have not used a Swainson's hawk in falconry. It's mostly just because the species in and of itself doesn't captivate my attention. I have ADHD. I glom onto a species and I'm like, I learn everything about it and its history and its interaction with humanity and its, the folklore around it, like lanner falcons. Everybody knows I'm the world's biggest lanner falcon fan. You're not going to find anybody else who promotes lanner falcons more than me, I swear. I just, lanner falcons, ancient Egyptian history, blah. I'm always talking about lanner falcons when there's far superior falcons to hunt. Well, if I felt that way about Swainson's hawks, then you can be sure I'd be promoting them nonstop too. Swainson's hawks are incredible birds on their own, and their migration routes are amazing, but they don't captivate my attention, and they don't seem, in my head, to lend themselves well to falconry. But again, I'm the weirdo who's like, if you really love a species and you really want to train it and you're really going to do it right, do it. I've flown and hunted with harriers. I promote Kenan McClendon's work where he's training ospreys and hunting with them successfully. It takes a lot of very specific training to get them to do it, but he does it. So go ahead. If you like Swainson's hawks, fly one. Now, there are, I'm again, because I had a stroke back in April, and I don't remember everybody and everything. And I was trying to go through my files. I have photos and files of a friend in another state from years ago who had great success hunting a Swainson's hawk. And if you're on this channel and you see us, please can you reach out and say, yeah, that was me, and maybe put some links to your work. There are many falconers over the years who have hunted Swainson's hawks. They can hunt rabbits. They can do fine. If you are thinking about flying a Swainson's hawk, here is my recommendation. Fly a female. Swainson's hawks, okay, with birds of prey, with raptors, the females are basically always larger than the males, about a third larger. With Swainson's hawks, that discrepancy is bigger. There's a bigger difference. And male Swainson's hawks are so tiny. They really, really are tiny. And I can't imagine something like a male Swainson's hawk being coaxed into going after something like a jackrabbit. Female Swainson's hawks are the size of a western redtail to maybe just a little smaller than a western redtail, but their feet are still not as big and not as strong as that of a redtail. They're not as gamey or as intention-driven at hunting as a redtail. So again, if you're choosing between the two and you're like, I'm going to go hunt cottontails and rabbits and ducks, well, if you're choosing for the purpose of hunting, go between a redtail and a Swainson's, go with the redtail. But if you really love Swainson's and you really want to put forth the effort to do it, there's nothing wrong with it, and people have successfully hunted them. I just highly recommend you get a female over a male. Now, even though Swainson's hawks, I've said how gentle they are. I have only worked with them in the form of wildlife education and wildlife rehab. I have never flown one. I've never hunted one. I've done some training, for wildlife education centers, helping train them to fly and stuff, but I have never hunted with one. But even though they're very gentle and train incredibly easily and are mellow, the meanest raptor I have ever worked with, by a long shot, was a rehab Swainson's hawk. This Swainson's hawk would just lash out and constantly try to attack everyone and everything. And it had been through a few rehabbers where it kept breaking all its own tail feathers when it was lashing around and trying to attack people. And so they would try to molt out the tail feathers so it could be set free. It was healthy again, but it kept breaking its feathers. So they gave it to me, and I imped the feathers, repaired the feathers, and turned it back. But that thing would just, I have never seen such aggression in any bird at all, let alone a raptor. And so, every bird is an individual. We can say what we want about observations we make about as a species, but still, every bird is an individual. And you could train a Swainson's hawk and have it be the gamiest, fastest, best rabbit hunter that the world's ever seen. It's entirely possible. But so again, just to kind of wrap this up, Swainson's hawks, amazing, remarkable species. They gave rise to the Galapagos hawk. It is possible that they gave rise to the Hawaiian hawk as well. We know the Galapagos hawk, the Hawaiian hawk, and the short-tailed hawk, those three are very closely related. Genetic studies have proven that Galapagos hawks came directly from Swainson's hawks. It is possible that Hawaiian hawks came from Swainson's hawks as well, or both Swainson's and short-tailed hawks that made it to Hawaii and then form a super species. Don't know, but it's interesting that they go as far as they go, from as far as Canada all the way down to Argentina. You're covering half a globe every year. It's amazing. They're remarkable species, and even though they do hunt really little prey most of the time, like little mice and grasshoppers and crickets and things like that, they are capable hunters, and they can be trained and have been proven to be able to hunt prey as large as jackrabbits. So a lot of people have asked me to make this video for a long time, and finally this year I've been having fun seeing the Swainson's hawks in the fields, and I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to break down and do this. I'm going to swallow my pride and do a video on this truly beautiful, amazing species. Hope you get a chance to see them yourself as they're migrating through this year. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your comments and your experiences with Swainson's hawks, and as always, happy hawking.